So, The Shrouds is the latest film from David Cronenberg, another body horror film, but this one is a lot more interesting, I think, because instead of Cronenberg's other films, which are kind of looking about at basically looking at the evolution of the human body, The Shrouds is very much about the end of of the body, because it's very much still body horror, but it's a lot more focused on grief and trying to deal with death, which I do think comes from this type of film comes from a much more personal place with Cronenberg, who has endured the death of his wife. The story of this film is Karsh, played by Vincent Castle, runs Grave Tech, which is this graveyard where they have webcams inside all the coffins, so you can get these 3D HD views of the decaying body. And for Karsh, he doesn't quite see how morbid this is, because he's mostly focused on constantly looking at the corpse of his dead wife, Becca, who's played in the film in visions by Diane Kruger. And he can't stop fantasizing about, her in his mind, and he keeps looking at her, and he keeps looking at this footage so much that the more that he zooms in on it, he starts noticing something weird. He's like, there's something going on with her decaying body. There's these little things on there, which I don't think they were there before. So he starts getting a little bit more paranoid, and he becomes even more paranoid when there are people who start, busting up his technology, and they invade his graveyard, and they start digging up bodies and breaking headstones. And he's like, well, who could have done this? And then there's his systems, which monitor all the dead bodies, is now being hacked. So he's just wondering who could be behind this and who's doing this. And at the same time, he just hasn't gotten over Becca. He's just, he sees her everywhere, especially since, her sister Terry looks exactly like her, because she's also played by Diane Kruger. But also, he has an AI assistant called Honey, who also has her voice and acts like her. So, Karsh is just haunted by his dead wife. He can't get him out of his mind. Even when he starts sleeping around with his new business partner, Sumin Sabo, played by Sandrine Holt. You would think okay, he's found a new lover in his life, he can move on, but he can't. He's still having these morbid visions of, he keeps coming back to this naked version of his wife, who's just decaying. He's imagining, the situations where she had cancer and she was basically losing her body. She would lose a breast, or she would lose an arm or a rib, and she would just keep decaying more and more, and he just can't get that vision out of his mind. So he's just trying to deal with this as best he can, while also trying to uncover what he thinks is a hacker plot between either the Chinese or the Russians, or the Chinese and the Russians. And he just finds he can't trust anybody, especially his best friend and his sister-in-law's ex-husband, Murray, played by Guy Pearce in the film. He thinks he can trust this guy because he helped build his AI assistant, but as it turns out, Murray is also untrustworthy as well. So this is the type of thriller where I think you really have to be engaged with it thematically, because it doesn't give you any easy answers. It just keeps complicating itself more and more and more, where you don't know what's going on. You don't know if Karsh really is being hacked, or if there actually is something on his wife's body, or or if Terry is telling lies, or if or if even Karsh's lover is on the up and up, if they actually have a business relationship or an erotic relationship. And it's just, it's really difficult for Karsh to parse this out, while he's just kind of drowning in his own grief and darkness, where even moments where he's fully engaged with sex, he's still in the act, he is still talking about this, while his lovers are still talking about it as well. And it's just, he can't get it out of his mind. And he grows more and more paranoid because he doesn't know who to trust. And you don't know who to trust either. Like at one point you think you know what's going on because Murray has this kind of confession where he breaks down and he says like, oh, I'm working for hackers, and oh yeah, I've tampered with, the AI of Honey to kind of like monitor Karsh and try to, work out a deal here. But then you would have like Terry come in and say like, oh yeah, that's Murray. He does that all the time. Oh, did he lose fingers? Well, he's lost those fingers for the longest time. And just like, who is telling the truth here? It gets to the point where even Karsh will just like flat out make up lies, if only just to like throw other people off, because he finds everybody so untrustworthy here. So it's very much a paranoid tech thriller to that degree, but also an existential one that focuses on like the decay of the human body, and also a little bit more on the decay of the mind. Especially because, with like the AI of Honey, that is especially a mystery, because like it's believable with how AI models work currently that someone like Murray would be controlling it and monitoring Karsh. But at the same time, at one point, when Honey becomes a little bit more vindictive rather than comforting, she assumes like the vision that Karsh has had of his dead wife, where she's naked and she's lost a breast and a rib and an arm, and like you're terrified by this because, like, for one, yeah, just seeing like a CG character look like that, who was once, at one point she's a koala, and then she just goes from like this nice looking lady to that, and you're questioning like, well, did Murray know about this, or did Karsh program this in, or how much does the AI know? So there's this constant questioning throughout. And I love the fact that it very much plays up on an ambiguity about the situation, because while there is some believable aspects to how this type of technology could be hacked or manipulated, it's not ultimately about that. Like, it keeps the plot going, but the plot is essentially Karsh trying to come to terms with his dead wife, and stop trying to find like a reason for it, because he's also like jealous of Becca's Dr. Eckler, who not only like worked on her during her last few days, but also she had an affair with. So there's this aspect of like jealousy where he kind of like, he wants to find like a reason not to trust this doctor more and to focus more on her body. Like it's essentially a film about letting go in the weirdest way possible, and just realizing that there might be some mysteries you don't understand, and there might be aspects of our world that just don't make sense, but you have to kind of try to find a way to move on, even if it leaves you messed up by the end. Like, you just kind of have to find a way to accept it. Otherwise, it just drives you mad. And this film kind of explores what happens when that existential crisis, paired up with this technology, just drives you nuts. And I think that really works for like a Cronenberg film, like, especially given that a lot of like Cronenberg's like more recent films have been about, like the changing aspects of the body, where where focus is more on like evolution and coming to terms with where our bodies can go next. And I think for him to shift that with the Shrouds to what happens when the body decays and when it's gone, and dealing with, when we basically have to like let go of that corpse and essentially kind of let go of, the horror of the body itself. I think that I don't think this is Cronenberg's last film, but if it is, it would be a very fitting film for him to go out on, because it's a personal film. Like, I imagine that David could relate a lot to Karsh, but also, I found myself, feeling bad for him as well, especially with like Vincent Cassel giving like this very like stern and very emotional performance, and just showing like that vulnerability within him, especially for like a lot of scenes where he does basically have to shed a lot of like like that business exterior and reveal just how terrified and scared and horny he is, like at the same time, just all these mixed emotions that come out when you're dealing with death. So yeah, for having like that bit of a shift for David Cronenberg, I think it works. And I gotta say, David Cronenberg still hasn't lost his touch. He's found something new and personal and fascinating to explore with the Shrouds. So yeah, this is another David Cronenberg film that I absolutely love.